What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Inside the Burrow. Welcome to the FAU Owls Nest YouTube channel. My name is Jake Kelly, joined by Kevin Fielder, JJ Metz. Kevin, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great, mainly because FAU decided to not lose to Charlotte and potentially ruin all our hopes and dreams, which was a valid concern at some point during the week, and then was not a valid concern when the game started. I'm just gonna
No,
be honest.
no. It was a very comfortable game that I saw myself clicking back and forth between that game and the Heat game that was going on because Heat game was a lot more close. So it was very fun to get through that game. And I hope last night was a very fun and safe night for you guys all out there trick or treating for Halloween, whether it's you, whether it's with your kids, whatever. JJ, do you still go trick or treating by chance?
Do. I don't go as all out as I used to, racing my friends for who gets more candy. Those are the best, but uh, still great, still fun. And I went trick or treating last night and many more before I stopped.
Well, what's your favorite go-to candy? Let's say you walk up to a big bowl, massive bowl. They've got a whole bunch of different assortments of candy, and it has that sign where it says "Only take one." Which candy are you picking?
There's only
Yes,
one right
so
answer,
that
JJ.
happened a lot yesterday. Um, I really, really like Skittles.
Okay.
So there was a sign to take one. They like ate Skittles. And the person was out there. I took five Skittles and they're like, put them back. Me and my friends run away.
Oh my
And we
gosh,
did that a bunch last night.
we got a delinquent here. Kevin, what is your go-to?
It's Reese's, and it's always going to be Reese's, and anyone who says otherwise should frankly not be allowed to trick or treat. Sorry, JJ, but it's just a fact right now.
Now, I will say I was a massive Reese's fan, and then I got COVID, and then peanut butter now tastes like literal like cigarette ash to me. Like I can't, and I'm also like slightly allergic to peanut butter to peanuts, so we stay away from Reese's. The taste isn't
Now,
worth it.
I do
Never
have an
had
important
Reese's.
question.
Uh huh.
Sorry, go ahead, JJ.
I've never had Reese's in my life.
You haven't?
What?
How do we fix this? How do we fix this?
Dog, that's your mission after we get off this
So
podcast is go ask your parents. If you didn't get any yesterday, ask your parents to get you some Reese's. Which would
so
be
so
nuts to ask after Halloween. Like, can I go get some candy?
so Jacob, I have a very important question in terms of Reese's, and it was something that popped up on my Twitter feed yesterday. So real quick,
Okay.
is a normal Reese's peanut butter cup and those like Reese's pumpkins, are those the same thing or are they different candies?
I mean, they're the same, but for
I
some
think they're
reason,
different.
I did enjoy the eggs more than the cups or those special holiday ones that they always had.
Yeah.
I always enjoyed those more for some reason. I
So
can't
I
explain it.
think they're different between, and this is going to sound incredibly wild, and I feel like it just after I say this, when you just start talking about football, because it's going to go off the rails very quickly afterwards. The peanut butter to chocolate ratio between a normal Reese's peanut butter cup and a Reese's like pumpkin or egg is significantly different.
That is a valid
They
point.
don't have the same chocolate peanut butter ratio, and I think the egg has a little bit more peanut butter in it than the chocolate one or than the normal cup. And so you can taste the difference. They're a part of the same family, but like they're like stepchildren in the family.
That's a very valid point. So I get what you mean in terms of difference, but they're still very enjoyable. At least used to be enjoyable for me. For me now, the go-to is the Hershey cookies and cream. Just if I'm getting a
Oh,
candy bar every single time,
amazing.
Hershey's or their Twix afterwards, and Kit Kat, and then you get into the weeds. But those are the main three important ones: Hershey's, cookies and cream. If you're not allergic to peanuts, go get yourself some Reese's. Skittles, we like Skittles. We prefer the ones in the purple bag, but they're still pretty good. But yeah, we have football. We have football coming up this week. It was actually 8 days from, well, by the time the game starts on Saturday, 8 days from the last game since last week was on Friday, where we were able to take care of Charlotte up in Charlotte, 38-16, and then we still have two very winnable games in a row with UAB and then Eastern Carolina. So we'll just very quickly touch up on the game last week, and it was a pretty easy win for the FAU Owls, 22-point victory. Kevin, what was like your biggest takeaway while watching that game?
So the biggest takeaway was, wow, that rebuild in Charlotte's going to take a little bit longer than I thought it would because holy crap, they were outmatched. It like just frankly, it felt like FAU was in a different like football like league. It just felt like they weren't even in the same, like they weren't playing college football. Like it felt like you were watching like the best high school team in the country with all the five stars, like the IMG Academy, try and play some like small Iowa schools JV team. because Charlotte got completely outmatched and they had no answers for LeJontay Wester the entire game. And, they had no answers for frankly anyone on the offense. And bar a few times where it looked like maybe a little bit concerning for FAU in terms of like letting Charlotte keep it close. I mean, it may have been a 15-point game on paper. It never felt like a 15-point game. It felt like a 30-point game for the entire game. And, Charlotte just sort of stayed in through a couple big plays.
Yeah, and we did see they had the issues with quarterback. With Jalen Jones went down earlier in the game, and then they ended up with 15 attempts from Trexler Ivy, 14 attempts from Jalen Jones. They never had any solid quarterback play. They had almost as much rushing yards as passing yards, and sometimes when you say that aloud, it's a good thing, but in this instance, definitely a bad thing. But JJ, we saw LeJontay Wester get back to his tremendous ways. He is now back again atop college football in leading in receptions last week. 10 catches, 149 yards, and 2 touchdowns. We're over halfway through the season at this point, and it's clearly not like an early season fluke. This is what LeJontay Wester is. So how impressed have you been, JJ, by LeJontay this season, and then just looking forward to what this potentially could mean for him long term?
Give him the Bolitnikoff Award for the best receiver in college football. What he has done this season is really, really, really impressive. I'm so proud of LeJontay's season so far. As you mentioned, he is the leading receiver in catches in all of college football. And I think that if LeJontay keeps this on pace, he has a chance of winning the Bolitnikoff Award of the best receiver in the country. Also, uh, we can't take for granted his punt returning skills. When he catches a punt, uh, I'd say 5% of the time he's going to return it for a touchdown. And he is an insane player all around on the receiving or returning punt. So I really like what LeJontay has done this season.
Yeah, and he's continuing to break records. I mean, he already took FAU's leading receiver of all time mark, and then just probably going to do the same thing with single season for FAU. I just looked up real quick the most catches in college football history in a single season, and not gonna get that. A little giddy if you expect that record to be struck down. He's got 76 catches. We got a handful of games left. Interestingly enough, would not in a million of years expected this. Who has the most catches in a single season? Zay Jones. Zay Jones of the Jacksonville Jaguars has the most catches in a single season in college football history.
Zay Jones was kind of a dog though at ECU. Like he was
I was gonna
insane
say,
at
yeah.
ECU.
Interestingly enough, against an opponent that FAU will be talking about next week on the preview with Eastern Carolina. But this week we have UAB on the slot, and it's been fair to say that they have not had a great season, very similar to what we saw last week with Charlotte. You take away their first game where they won against NC A&T, allowing 42 points per game to their opponents. They only have one conference win so far this season, and that was against South Florida, a team that we saw you can easily put points up as well. So, Kevin, how excited are you to see this offense come against another bad defense after what we saw what this offense did to South Florida's defense, and this team beat South Florida? So, how does that compute in your head looking forward to Saturday?
It feels like this stretch of games, the Charlotte, UAB, ECU stretch of 3 games, is the perfect time for like the offense to try and gain some momentum because it felt like at times during the season it's been, you have to play Illinois, then you have to play USF, then you have to play UTSA. Like there's no really way to get momentum when you have to play 2 great defenses in the span of like 3 weeks. This is 3 incredibly weak teams, incredibly weak defenses, and like to be blunt, the offense, if they can't figure out a way to score points again against these 2 teams, like they're probably just not going to have a chance against Tulane. The good news is I feel like they probably have a good chance of scoring in both of those games and scoring in good numbers because the offense has found ways to attack in different ways. And like even if they're trying to neutralize LeJontay, we've seen teams like double or play just man with a zone a zone coverage sort of matchup in there at some point. Like they've tried to find ways to stop LeJontay, but he's still getting his work, and the running game has gotten a little bit more consistent as the season has gone on. So like it feels like the offense is hitting its stride at the right time. And the good news is before you have the game against Tulane that will inevitably be circled on the schedule for every FAU fan because of the implications around it. You're getting the best out of FAU's offense right now, and it's coming at the perfect time in terms of like gaining momentum for the important game.
Yeah, these next few games, I mean, I don't think you can lose a game the remainder of the season if you want to get in that conference championship game. I looked forward a little bit, and the one of the biggest decision makers as to who's going to make assuming Tulane's going to make it alongside them is when SMU and Memphis play. Memphis has one loss, and SMU has not lost a single game, so we're very dependent on Memphis getting that game in a few weeks' time. But for the time being, again, going against a Charlotte team that's 2-6, that we are certainly not going to be vying for a conference championship game, and they do have some playmakers on their own side of the offense. Jermaine Brown, leading rusher, 410 yards, 9 rushing touchdowns, and then Jacob Zeno, who did miss some time. He is, as far as I'm aware, going to be back for the game. He was a game time decision 2 weeks ago. They had a bye week, and then he's likely to be playing this week against FAU. So JJ, can you just tell us what you know about these two players?
Yeah, so starting with Jacob Zeno, he, as you mentioned, was hurt before the bye. He was a game time decision and then he got hurt, but he should be back this season. He's a 6'4", 215-pound quarterback. He's thrown for over 1,900 yards and 12 touchdowns this season with 6 interceptions. His QBR is at 58.2, which ranks 75th in college football. But Jacob Zeno really is sort of like a game manager. He hands the ball off to one of the best running backs in the American Athletic Conference in Jermaine Brown Jr. Now, Jermaine Brown Jr. has really been everything that their running back last year, Dwayne McBride, was. Dwayne McBride ended up being drafted in the 6th round by the Minnesota Vikings, but Jermaine Brown has really backed him up and really filled in for him from last season. His game varies. He can catch the ball out of the backfield, and he's sneaky athletic. He's very fast. He has 83 carries for 410 yards and 9 touchdowns on the season, 4.9 yards average. And both these guys are going to be two players to look out for. But if Jermaine Brown can get going, like um, like get going, have over 100 rushing yards, then it's going to be very hard to stop this UAB offense.
Yeah, you're looking at a player that has just shy of 700 all-purpose yards, rushing and receiving, leading rusher for the team, third leading receiver for the team.
Jacob,
Sorry, go ahead.
if I may add real quick, like as someone who's covered UAB over the years, and I don't mean to interrupt, but like as someone who's covered UAB over the years, like dating back to Dwayne McBride, and I think even before that was like Spencer Brown, if my UAB running backs history is helping me out here. But like regardless, like this is still UAB offense. Typically they have this elite running back who can sort of carry the offense, and then they rely on their quarterback to make one or two big throws a game and sort of game manage the rest of the way, as JJ mentioned. Like you're not going to get a quarterback here who's going to throw for 500 yards and like make you look silly. Like that's just not going to happen. You're going to get an offense that sort of just stays on schedule and then hopes to get one or two big plays. So like from that standpoint, feels pretty good if you're FAU, because FAU's played these offenses before in the American. I think like Charlotte's pretty similar, and USF wants to be that way in terms of like just staying on schedule and then hitting a couple of big plays. And FAU obviously did really well against both of them.
Yeah, this quarterback room was pretty weak without my namesake, without Jacob Zeno at quarterback. So even though this is certainly a bad team. I mean, you can't try to argue for a team that is 2-6, that's 1-3 in conference. This don't get it twisted. This is a bad team, but if there were a time that you would look on the schedule like maybe I wouldn't want to play them at this point in time, it is when they're getting their quarterback. He's going to be about as fully healthy as he can be. Coming off of bye week, the coaching staff were able to try to do their best to right some wrongs that they've seen from earlier on in the year. And I mean, especially you look at what we saw in the Memphis game. And Memphis has proved to be one of the best teams in this conference. They won 45-21 2 weeks ago in Birmingham, so it was a home game for UAB. And you're looking at 173 yards combined between three different quarterbacks. Landry Liddy, 6 of 9, 68 yards. Harrison Barker, 58 yards. Trace Campbell, 47 yards. 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions thrown. And now you bring that back to a guy who is a lot more comfortable running their offense with Jacob Zeno. 74.4% completions percentage, 12 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, just shy of 2,000 yards passing. So they're getting him back. They're getting him back about fully healthy as he's going to be. And this is, again, if you're going to look at the schedule and say there's a tough time to play UAB, it is at this point in time a tough time to play UAB. I want to talk just briefly about somebody who I think when you see him come in the game for FAU in recent weeks, that means things are going well. And that's backup quarterback Michael Johnson Jr. He got in the end zone again last time out against Charlotte, 45 yards and a touchdown. Kevin, what do you think Michael Johnson means to this offense to be able to change the pace and do something just completely different than Daniel Richardson, even though at quarterback he's not really looking to throw?
Yeah, I think they're still trying to figure out his role sort of like long term in terms of like if this is going to be the thing you do for the rest of the season in terms of like letting him be I don't know to call it like a red zone weapon or like a red zone quarterback. Then you need to find a way to get him on the field because he's athletic. He can make guys miss in the run game. Like we've seen that before. And, if teams are going to start keying on that, he's still a quarterback. He can still throw the ball to some general level. Like, in a sense, like it's probably better for the offense to find ways to get their weapons involved. And like, that's been the thing that FAU dating back to like Lane Kiffin has done incredibly well, which is like just getting the ball into your weapons' hands and letting them make plays. And Michael Johnson is to some degree like a really good offensive weapon. When the ball's in his hands, you have to account for him in the run game. You have to, still account for the possibility of him beating you over the top with a throw. Like, I don't know if like they feel really comfortable with him probably starting an entire game. Hopefully that doesn't have to be the case, and Daniel Richardson can start the entire game and be your main quarterback. But Michael Johnson has a role in this offense, and if you can find a way to maximize that role, this offense takes a different identity that, beginning of the season they just didn't really have, and that's probably good news, for this offense if they can find just different ways to get guys involved and have different identities that makes it harder for defenses to stop.
Yeah, I'd like to see him on the field, not literally speaking as much as possible, but you take a look over with the New Orleans Saints with what they're able to do with Taysom Hill, and obviously you're looking at a pro athlete who's done it for a long time versus someone who's in college and, new coaching system, and he's really trying to find his way. But when you have your stereotypical pocket passer going to sit there, going to observe the defense, try to hit the right man, and then you can just on a dime switch it up and have somebody in the game who can throw, but he's bigger body. In this case, more on the quick side with Michael Johnson. He gets the outside edge. He can make some guys miss, and he's just finding ways to gain yards. He doesn't do a lot of doesn't try to make a lot of moves. He just tries to go uphill or uphill downhill and gain yards. I'd like to see him on the field virtually, every third and short. Not every, but going forward, like if it's third and two on, let's say, your own 38-yard line. You're probably going to go for it anyways. Not your own, the opposing 38-yard line. You're probably going to go for it anyways. Why not give 2 shots to Michael Johnson? Either hand the ball off, run an RPO, maybe even look to pass the ball. But you have two chances with Michael Johnson to pick up that first down. I feel very good about that. It was a bright side to see. 9 yards per carry last week in Charlotte. Got in the end zone again. So when he gets on the field, usually produces fruit and usually means FAU is going in a good direction with the offense, that they can afford to put somebody out there who they're not quite sure what he's going to do and just let him go out there and make a play. And he's probably going to have a lot of opportunities to make plays against this UAB team who, again, like I said, 42 points per game in their losses outside their first game of the season, or in their all games outside their first game of the season. A team that allows a lot of points, can score a lot of points, but this should be a high-scoring affair for FAU. So we're here at this point in the program where we all look up to the top right corner of the screen and just wonder, What is that young man, JJ Metz, going to have to say about how FAU is going to play this Saturday? JJ, the floor is yours.
Yeah, and before we get into that, I mean, last week I said it, I think I said 38-20 for FAU, and it was 38-16. So back on track, and I
Hey,
mean, I'll take that that was pretty close. I
it
mean,
was.
back on track. This week is a very potential trap game. It's at UAB. Now UAB has nothing to lose. I mean, they're gonna have to win out to make a bowl game, so they're gonna have to win this game. But on the other hand, their season is pretty much over. Um, but I'm going to take FAU to steamroll UAB
Waited for that
by
word. Let's go.
40 points. Give me FAU 55 and UAB, I'll say UAB 17.
Mmm. Mmm. We love it. We love it. Kevin, you were very negative last week about the basketball team. You said that they were going to have a bad season, and you said they were going to fall short of massively fall short of expectations. So you have an opportunity here to redeem yourself. And how do you think the game will go for this FAU football team on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, I think FAU is going to win this game pretty easily. This is a UAB team that hasn't figured itself out. This is a UAB team that is frankly just like not up to the level of the American yet, similar to what Charlotte was. And I think they just handle this game better than they did Charlotte. Like, I don't think we'll get into a situation where like heading into the fourth quarter, it's a 15-point game. Do I think that they're going to win by 40, as JJ so eloquently said? No. I don't think that they're going to win by 40. I think they're going to win in like the 30s or like really high 20s. I think they reached the 40-point mark for the second time in 4 weeks because they did it against USF and they were really close to doing it prior to that. But give me FAU 42, Charlotte 18. I don't know what the math is on that spread. I am a journalism major for a reason, but or a journalism graduate now. But I think that they're going to handle this game like just with generally. Like, this is not a very good UAB team. FAU has the pieces to stop them without much problem, and so like give me FAU 42-18.
Well, while you guys are very, very positive about how this game is going to go for FAU, the odds makers over with ESPN still lean the way of FAU, but it is not quite near as big of a difference as you guys are alluding to. FAU is currently only a 1-point favorite against this UAB team, who, again, allows a lot of points. You look at some of the numbers, the points that UAB can score. They outgain us, throw more passing yards. They have more rushing yards. They do allow more yards, but it's not by a lot. And they are getting their starting quarterback back. So I definitely can see where the odds makers will try to pull back on FAU here a little bit, because we've had a hard time putting back-to-back impressive performances together. So I can definitely see where they're coming from in that nature, but we're not going to side with the odds makers. We are not going to side with ESPN. Quickly, I looked up the weather. The weather is going to be perfect. It's going to be low 70s, clear skies. Shouldn't be a lot of wind. So that's going to be a game which Daniel Richardson should feel very, very comfortable sitting there in that pocket and getting the ball into the hands of the potential Biletnikoff Award winner in LeJontay Wester. I'm looking for LeJontay to get into double-digit catches again, to continue to push that gap between him and second place for the most catches on the season. He currently has 76, is leading Torrey Holton by 6. Torrey Holton of Colorado State with 70. So just continue to push that gap, get yourself in that award-winning category, get yourself better draft stock. Really impressed to see how he does on Saturday. I'm going to go with FAU. I'm going to go with a high-scoring affair as well. I'm going to go with just short of 40. I'm going to go FAU 37, UAB 20. So I think we were all, give or take right there, in around the same range, and we all have pretty similar expectations for the game on Saturday.
I mean, yeah, we also said that they would win by more than like 2 scores.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to different degrees, because JJ said they would win by 40, and I said they would win by I don't know the math. I'm not getting paid to do math. I think it's like 24 is what I said. You said 18, so
I forgot. I
We're all
did
around,
forget. I did forget that JJ said a 38 point deficit. Well, we have a little bit of time here at the end, and we talked about beforehand, and we like to talk a little bit of basketball. No particular direction with this one. I was trying to figure out an answer. Does anybody know how many games there are in the college basketball season? Like how many games
Yeah.
are FAU playing?
30.
Yeah. Yeah. So, including the conference championships, there's 34.
And so how about
Including,
without just
if you
just
make it
regular
to the
season?
finals, regular season,
It's
34
30.
minus 3, 31 games.
Yeah, it's like
31.
30, 31,
Okay.
somewhere around there.
Okay.
Depends
So
what comp.
so last week we
30.
talked a little bit about expectations, and maybe I was a little far fetched by saying that Kevin was negative and saying we weren't going to do that good, but it is
There
interesting.
will,
Sorry, go ahead.
Jacob, let's be clear. There will be a time during this season where I am negative about this team for whatever reason. Like, it always happens with me in
Yeah.
terms of a team that I like. Like, I will inevitably be negative about them at some point. I don't think I'll ever get negative to the point of like, well, they're going to miss the tournament. Like, I don't think
No,
I'm ever going to get to
no,
like that doom and gloom. But like, I feel like at some point I'm just going to be bearish or bullish, whichever one is the right adjective. I
Bearish.
am not good at adjectives. I'm going to be bearish at some point about like one part of the team, and I don't know what that is yet. We'll figure it out. I think that this team's like pretty well positioned to make another deep tournament run, and it is incredibly difficult to return like 8 of your starters or 8 of your like best players and not make the tournament again or not make another long tournament run. The tournament is admittedly like a little weird in terms of like how teams advance and how teams progress,
Yeah.
but like this team is going to be a high single digit seed. They're going to be in the conversation for the national championship all year. Like this is still going to be a good basketball team, all things considered.
Kevin, you came ready to defend yourself today. I see. You came ready to fight all the allegations that JJ and I were going to throw at you. I see it. I respect it. JJ, I just want to hear one more time. Why are we going to win the national championship?
Yeah, for sure. So as Kevin said, we're returning all our starters, which is 90% of our production. If you look at it, we statistically are returning the most production from last year in all of college basketball. We have our top 8 guys can all play. They can all share the ball. In the starting lineup, we put 4 guards and 1 big, which due to the fact that we played such a good regular season with 4 guards and 1 big, um, it's only going to help that Rosado has developed this season. And Coach May said that Rosado and Golden will play a lot more on the floor together, which is going to make our team have more size, make us be bigger. And you can't forget about John L. Davis, the best player in college basketball. He's going to average 20 plus points per game this season. He had 3 games with over 25 points last season, 2 including 36 points against UAB, 29 against FDU in the tournament game. But this FAU team has the best roster top to bottom in all of college basketball. I mean, if you look at it, our best 3 players and our best 3 guards in Elijah Martin, John L. Davis, and Nick Boyd are probably the best guard combination in all of college basketball as well. I love how we can share the ball. Elijah Martin, his athleticism is really, really good. He can dunk over anyone. And this team is not going to give up. Uh, in 4 games last season, we came back from more than 7 point deficit, which is very, very impressive. And I think that if the worst case scenario that we do this year, in the regular season is having 2 losses.
Worst case?
Yeah, that's worst case scenario.
Oh, I mean, if that's worst case, I'd love to see best case. Kevin, what do you think is the right number for expected losses this year for this FAU team?
Oh boy, I have tried to like figure out where I stand on this, and I hate doing projections that are just like very like blunt, like oh well they're only going to lose 2 games or whatever. Like I will say I think they're a single digit loss team in the regular season, and I think that they're pretty comfortably a single digit loss team. Like I think that some of these non-conference games are just going to be challenging because of the environment, whether it's Arizona in Vegas or even like Loyola Chicago, who's a very good basketball team in Chicago, like neutral site, not really neutral site. It's going to be mostly Loyola Chicago fans. Then you have the games in Madison Square Garden. You have the games in Orlando. Like they're all tournament sort of environments in terms of like having to play in a neutral site, having to prepare for a team on short notice. Like that is all good for preparing for the tournament. I think they're going to drop a few of those games. Just
No,
just naturally, I think they're going to drop a few of those
no,
games. I know JJ's just going to disagree with
no.
me when I say that. Uh, I don't know. I don't think they're going to get embarrassed in any game though this season. Like I don't think there's going to be a game this year where they lose by like 15, 16 points. It's like, ah, man, that's pretty bad. Like I think most of their losses are going to probably be single digit. Just, you're playing a 31 game regular season, you're going to lose games. Like we saw that last year too in terms of like they just lost a few games during the season that you probably like don't lose if you play that game 10 times, but basketball games are not played 10 times for a reason. Like you're going to end up losing a few games. Give me like, if I had to put a number on it, like 4 to 7 losses is like where I sort of stand. Yeah, I know, JJ. I'm not sitting here saying 2 losses like you are, but like I think 4 to 7 losses feels like a good solid bet, and that still gets you probably like a 3 seed in the tournament.
I see a look in JJ's eyes, and he's just
JJ
full of
JJ looks like
rage.
I said that they're gonna finish under 500 and not win a single game this season.
You may as well have. I mean, I feel like at this point, you might as well just dug that grave. Just keep her going.
I might as well come on the next episode just say they're never gonna win another basketball game.
That's all he heard actually. I don't think he actually heard you say you're going to win a game. There are some difficult games in JJ. Let's be real. There are some difficult games, and those non-conference games, those ranked matchups, 25 Illinois, 12 Arizona, and even those times where you do have to go up to a Loyola Chicago, like it is difficult. There are games that we can win, and just based off our ranking, should win. But you're asking to go play Arizona in that massive environment, and you're going to like you said, going to New York, going to Orlando. You're playing in like a mini tournament. It would be understandable if this team finishes, and still very acceptable if we finish with around 4 or 5 losses.
Uh, that's unacceptable. My prediction for this season in the regular season is 31-0. We are not losing a game in all of this regular season this year, and that's my honest prediction. When you say Loyola Chicago is a competitor, I just can't take you seriously. Loyola Chicago went 10-21 last season. They lose 4 or 5 starters. They do return their best player in Preston Ashton, who is one player to look out for. But you can't say Loyola Chicago is a competitor. If there's one game that I'm most worried about this entire season, that's in Vegas against Arizona. But also, Arizona only brings back 2 starters. They lose one of their best players in Kirk Carissa to the transfer portal, who is one of the best 3-point shooters. Um, if if I'm looking at this schedule, the most trap game I can see is on the road in non-conference against St. Bonaventure's. St. Bonaventure had 2 home losses last season, and that's very, very good. They also return all 5 starters. Um, they lose one player from all of last year, and it's on the road in St. Bonaventure's in New York. That environment's going to be really, really good. But I do think that this FAU team is going to breeze through this conference schedule. No one is even close to the standard of FAU. I don't think Memphis finishes top 3 in this conference. They're really, really bad, really bad. And I see FAU 1, I see UAB 2, and North Texas 3. The Conference USA was arguably as good, probably a little worse, but arguably as good last season as what the AAC is this year. If you look at the Conference USA, the NIT champions were North Texas and UAB got second. The CBI champions were Charlotte, and FAU made the NCAA Final Four. So really, really impressive what the Conference USA did last year. They were ranked as the number 3 conference, in John Rothstein, who's a CBB analyst, in all of last season, which is really impressive. But I do think that if we have more than 2 losses this season, I'm going to be really upset, really frustrated, really upset. And Kevin, when you said that you're going to be disappointed this season, you're going to be a little more negative, you're not going to be, because we're not going to lose a game. We're not going to lose a game. Championship or bust. Let's run it back, baby.
God, I love it listening to this kid speak. That's beautiful. Hey, again, it's a great place that we're going to end it off. We're really excited for the basketball season. Next week, when the episode drops, will be actually at the same exact time that FAU's first game, like we just mentioned, being up in Chicago for Loyola Chicago. So, just try to sneak in the preview a little bit or have it on a separate tab while you're watching for next week. But for this week, very excited for the UAB game, an opportunity for FAU to go back above 500, 4-1 in conference, very much with visions of that conference championship game still in line. We very much appreciate y'all watching. If you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Is Kevin right with the basketball? Is JJ right with the basketball? Let us know down there in the comments, as well as give us your predictions for the football game on Saturday. We appreciate y'all very much for watching. Have a great rest of your day. Go Owls, everybody.